Hey everybody, today's topic is going to be on ways to improve your fertility, and this may not be for everybody, but the good news is it has been recorded that a 70-year-old woman in India gave birth and conceived. So no matter what your age is, maybe you want to consider having some more babies. Okay, so I know you 6-year-olds out there rolling your eyes at me right now, but this is really important because when we're looking at fertility, one of the big things that we've been taught to look at is if you have not been able to conceive after trying for a full year, then you may have some issues. That's when we usually check things out. And the standard conventional treatment has been to look at things and either perform surgery if your fallopian tubes are blocked, or if you've got endometriosis, or if you have some type of physical abnormality, varicosities in men. And the other thing that we've been taught conventionally is to prescribe medication, so hormones to manipulate the menstrual cycle, and luteinizing hormones and follicle stimulating hormones and estrogen and progesterone. But yeah, let's talk about some natural ways, because in some cases those therapies are amazing and they have helped lots of couples conceive. But there are some shadows to that. There is a shadow side, some risks that are inherent when you're looking at it. One thing we do know in our country is that fertility rates are decreasing. And that's not just in our country, it's worldwide. So a lot of people are saying, well, now the population problem is solving itself because people are having fewer babies. If you look at the trends, 50 years ago, the average woman was having 5 kids in Asia, and now it's down to 2.1. If you look at the United States, our rates have dropped off substantially as well. Here's a graph that will kind of show you where we're at and where we're going. Right now, worldwide, the average birth that a woman will give is about 2.5 kids. So by 2045, 2050-ish, it's going to be less than 2. United States, depending on the state you're in, we're about 1.9 right now. Europe, in some parts of the world, it's even lower than that. So why is this? Part of it is it's choices people are making, and that's just totally fine. Last thing you want to do is have a baby and then try to give it back, because once you're committed, you're fully committed. And there are fun times and there are not fun times, but let's talk about some of the issues, because what we see if we just look at the numbers, fertility is affecting 3 in 10 women. And if you look at the amount of fertility, the amount of decrease over time, it starts to drop substantially. Your chances of getting pregnant after the age of 50 are about 0%, and then they're about 5% from 45 to 50. If you go to 40 to 45, you got a 36% chance. And if you're 35 to 40, you got about a 52% chance. 30 to 34, you got a 63% chance. 25 to about 35, you got a 78% chance. And then 20 to 25, you got an 86% chance. So your chances of conceiving as you age, your chances start to diminish of getting fertile. We found the infertility is equal amongst men and women these days, which is pretty startling, because when I was trained, it was about 30%. This was back in 2000, 99, 2000. We were trained that it's about 30% of the infertility cases are due to malcause, either poor motility in the sperm or low sperm count. Now it's closer to 50-50. So that's pretty startling, pretty interesting. What could be causing this decline? I see a lot of it is our foods. I mean, we've got more chemicals in our foods. We've got less nutrition. I was just talking to a patient about this today, and we said, Americans are overfed and undernourished. We've got all these genetically modified foods create an abundance of resource of macronutrients, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, but they are lacking in the micronutrients, those essential amino acids, the vitamins, the minerals are lacking in our soil, and foods are more toxic than they have ever been. And why? Partly is because of Monsanto and their mission and purpose to basically monopolize the agricultural industry by putting patents on seeds and then having those seeds be used for genetically modified crops. So watch what you're eating. For those of you who are trying to get pregnant, the foods that you eat are very key. If you look at the way that we are eating in our country, there's a big trend now to eat more organic local food, which is amazing. It's so cool that now you can go into a store like Costco and you can find lots of organic produce. You can find organic packaged products. Not that I recommend doing a lot of packaged products, but you can find that they're even having grass-fed organic meats, which is very cool because we've got to move in that direction, not just for our own body's health, but for the health of the planet. So, what are some of the conventional ways that we treat infertility? First of all, you have to do an evaluation to find out what's going on. There are treatments with intrauterine insemination. You can do artificial insemination, ovulation induction, female evaluations. You can do in vitro fertilization, and the list goes on and on. With Mells, sometimes we'll have to do sperm donation, sperm freezing, or secondary, um, donations. So, there's different treatments that we're using. Clomid seems to be the most common treatment that my female patients use, and most of them complain that particular hormone makes them feel like they're a monster, they're crazy. One of my best friends, his wife was on Clomid for about 3 months, and it literally cost them their marriage. They didn't stay together because it was so brutal. And then there was other things going on beyond just the Clomid, but that really, man, it was scary to be around, or we'd all kind of hide our heads. So, and I hear that a lot from my patients. Sometimes it's necessary to trigger some hormonal production. How's the cost in the fertility world? Some of you have insurance that will pay for some of this, but what we find is the price tag in Utah. This is more reflective of the state of Utah. I'll show some nationwide demographics here because I know a lot of you who listen are from out of the country or out of the state. And I really appreciate your emails, by the way. So send me emails and topics that you'd like. Infertility kept coming up, and so I was like, I got to do a podcast on this because I love the research, but I also love to provide value for those of you who are in this Go Wellness community. Okay, so the price tag for IVF on average is 10 to 18,000 for egg donation. That's going to be $25 to $30,000. And once again, this is per cycle. So with in vitro therapy, some women can go as many as 3 tries before they actually get a baby, and so that number can add up to close to around $50,000 is about the average. You can do the interfallopian transfer, that's 8,000 to 20,000. The gestational surrogacy, that's 70,000 to 90,000. That's the most expensive. The adoption path, depending on how clean the cycle is, it can be $5,000 to $40,000. And then just the fertility drugs on top of that is $60,000 to $6,000 per month. So not necessarily the least expensive way to go. Here's some more median in vitro fertilization prices by metro areas. New York City is going to be just over 12,000. Washington, D.C. is just under 10,000. Atlanta is about 9,800. Louisville, you Kentuckians, is about 12,000. Cincinnati's 10,000. Indianapolis 14,000. Minneapolis 17. Chicago 10,600. Austin 15,000. Denver 17,000. Salt Lake City 13,200. Las Vegas 15,000, San Fran 14,700, Portland 13,000, and Seattle 14,500. So everyone needs to travel to Washington D.C. That is the least expensive place to do in vitro fertilization. And but let's hope maybe we can show you some ways that you can do this without IVF, because it's very expensive. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's not safe. I've seen a lot of literature coming up on IVF babies, and what we're finding is that it's actually very costly if you can't conceive naturally. I get that, and if you need to do IVF, there's no problem. I understand the desire to have a biological baby, but in an ideal world, we would look at things from a holistic perspective. You know, what is it doing to the health of the mother? The hormones are causing an increase in a lot of issues with the mother, from heart disease to cancer. You can also see more depression. But in babies, children born following in vitro therapy are twice as likely to suffer ill health. Um, this particular study it's a British study, and it was published in the Human Reproduction Journal. And what they found is that with hundreds of 7-year-olds, they revealed that they are admitted to hospital much more frequently than other youngsters of the same age. The British study also showed many of their illnesses were common to all children. Those born through fertility treatment suffered more fits and more conditions connected to the brain and immune system. So the brain and immune system just wasn't developing as well, and kids tend to be sicker. Um, the figures published in Human Reproduction, a respected medical journal, will fuel fears over fertility treatments. Previous studies have also shown that young men conceived this way are more likely to be infertile. IVF babies also are more likely to suffer from birth defects, including heart problems, and are thought to be at higher risk of autism and cerebral palsy. So once again, we're just trying to look at things holistically. If you have babies from IVF, I mean, I have patients who were born IVF, and they're amazing and doing great, very healthy. We also have some that as patients that are not doing so well. So if you are ready to go the IVF route but have not looked at some of the alternatives we're going to talk about today, then I would say do everything in your power to try to conceive naturally, so that you can not only keep yourself healthy but also your baby. Because part of the problem is you do IVF and you are so beat up by the hormones and the drugs and the constant prodding that by the time you give birth you are pretty exhausted, and your body, specifically your endocrine glands, like your adrenals, your thyroid, they get incredibly taxed, and so you have no energy to raise your baby. Some of the IVF risks that I've seen, if you go to fightyourinfertility.com, you'll find some very interesting studies on this, but depression, cancer, heart attacks, multiple pregnancies are the major IVF risks. And postpartum depression, I mean, one of my patients, she's amazing. She's been a patient for 12 years, and she'd done IVF. She was round 1, didn't work. Round 2 didn't work. Then she found us. She came to my clinic. This was when I was down in Alpine, Utah, and we did treatments on her, and she started doing IVF, and this time it worked. And so she had twins, and she was very sick for about 4 years after that. But she was grateful to have her kids, and her son's doing really well. Her daughter struggles. I mean, gastroparesis is a big issue for her, so her digestive system's not working as well. But the cool thing about her is we're able to help her get pregnant naturally afterwards. One of my favorite stories on patients who had a baby is one of my patients. Her name's Christy, and she came to me at the age of 42. Hey, my husband and I, we just got married. and we want to have babies. And so she said, yeah, I know my time's limited. I get it. And so we did treatment, and it took 3 months, and that's pretty typical. It took 3 cycles. They've been trying for about a year, and she was considering IVF, but read about acupuncture and some of the success rates that have been shown with acupuncture, and so she came in and got treated, and 3 months later they had their first baby. And she came back 1 year later, and they wanted another baby, and so here she is. She's 44, and we did 3 months and no baby, and her cycle was kind of off and on. It was hit or miss. We hadn't regulated that, and so she and her husband decided, well, let's do IVF, because we know that the eggs are not the highest quality, and she knew she didn't have a whole bunch left. And so they went and did IVF with the acupuncture, and in the first cycle she got pregnant. Now they have 2 kids, and pretty amazing. Great kids, very healthy, both of them, even the IVF son. So some pretty cool things. But let's put some of the puzzle pieces together about what can cause some infertility. I mean, some of it can be adrenal depletion. And the adrenal glands sit right on top of your kidneys. I have a lot of different podcasts that talk about adrenal health, so check those podcasts out. The adrenal dysregulation, what it can do is it can cause irregularity in ovulation. It can trigger menstrual issues. The other causes can be family trauma. That can cause further hormonal imbalance, because your cortisol is your alpha hormone. If it's not properly regulated, you can become resistant to other sex hormones downstream in your cells. And the constant stress can cause an HPA imbalance. So you can actually have your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal glands all miss signaling. So they won't communicate with each other. Inflammation can cause poor egg quality. So inflammation can also cause poor cervical mucus, which makes it very difficult for the sperm to make it to the egg. You can put on weight. Too much weight can put too much stress on your body. You can have issues with your follicle stimulating hormone, and that can create stops in your ovulation. Colds and flus and immune issues can do it. You can get issues with poor digestion and a reliance on antibiotics. So yeast overgrowths have been shown to be some of the causes. Ovarian cysts, that can be a major cause. And all these things can lead to infertility. The 3 main types of stress that you want to look at in your life are the physical stress, because a brain injury can affect your hypothalamus and pituitary. You can also have issues with chemical toxicity. Those chemical toxins are endocrine disruptors, so they will cause an imbalance in your entire system. And then emotional stress can be another big contributing factor. So I want you to realize that if you can get to the cause, then you can start to see, like, wow, well, let's get my menstrual cycle all balanced out, because once we can get that thing balanced out, that's where we found the highest levels of success. We always tell our patients it's going to take at least 3 cycles. In many cases where there's difficulty with either fibroids or cysts, or if there's some endometriosis that's not too far gone, it may take us 6 to 9 cycles, but in general it's about 3 cycles. Because when you have stress, what stress will do is it will block your glucocorticoids. The glucocorticoids will block your hypothalamus to secrete the sex hormones into your pituitary, and then you will not get the adequate reproductive hormones that your body needs. If you were looking at Mells specifically, all right, so Mells, one of the big things we want to make sure is that you've got normal sperm count. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this image I have up of normal sperm count, low sperm count. Then I have what the shape is of a normal sperm versus an abnormal sperm. And then I have the sperm motility. So it shows the sperm kind of swim like a snake in a straight line. If your motility is off, it swims to the side and it kind of bounces around, and it needs to have a direct path. So sperm can be kind of like the way we live our life. Are you swimming directly towards a goal, or are you kind of bouncing around? I don't think that has any impact on sperm count, but it would be an interesting study. Here's some things sperm don't like. They don't like heat or pressure to the scrotum, so don't get kicked in the balls. That's not good for your sperm. Your sperm does not like caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, environmental toxins, over-the-counter medications, Rogaine for you balding men. Get rid of it during the fertility time, and maybe consider some laser treatments. We're actually looking at doing laser and platelet-rich plasma to regrow hair for you balding men or ladies. In the next probably 3 months, we should have that ready at the clinic. Laptops. So I have this very cool EMF blocker for my laptop, and I just set that plate on my laptop, and if I'm on an airplane, and it's sitting on my lap, or in my office, I always put my laptop on that. Got it on it right now so that I'm not exposed to so many EMFs. If you look at the estrogens found in plasticizers, the BPA, the BPB, the chemicals in our water, hormonally treated animal products, all these things cause issues with the sperm. So fellas, I want you to take the cell phone out of your pocket, and I want you to start carrying it somewhere else, because that cell phone is damaging your sperm's DNA. And that cell phone, what we found is that can decrease your sperm count. It can have an impact on fertility and your metabolism for the next generation. So we really want to look at all these things. There are a lot that you want to do. I mean, one of the myths is that wearing underwear can be an issue. Just make sure they're not too tight. But one of the big things I tell my male patients is keep your junk cool. Women, you want to stay warmer. Men, you want to stay cooler. There's a reason why our testicles will crawl up into our gut, essentially, if we're too cold, because they're trying to get warm back up. Or if you're super warm, your testicles are going to drop. So that's to cool them off. So if you're trying to get pregnant, we want you to stay cooler. So take a cold shower. Make sure you're driving around with an ice pack. No, you don't have to go that extreme much. No, I don't want any type of frostbite down there. That would not help with fertility. Here's an interesting study. It shows that 10 to 20% of couples will be able to conceive after 1 year of trying to become pregnant. And then the chances of pregnancy occurring in healthy couples who are both under the age of 30 and having intercourse regularly is 25 to 30% per month. So one thing that I did not mention yet is if you want to conceive, you're going to have to make love frequently. So regular intercourse every day. A woman's peak fertility occurs in her early 20s. As a woman ages beyond 40, the likelihood of getting pregnant drops to less than 10% per month. That's an issue. Here's some of the studies on in vitro. This was conducted by the CDC, a National Survey of Family Growth in 2012. 7.3 million had impaired funductee, a physical difficulty in getting pregnant or carrying a baby to term. 2.1 million women were infertile. In vitro fertilization and similar treatments account for less than 3% of infertility services. The average cost of IVF is $12,400, which we already covered. Some of the nutritional imbalances that we've seen with infertility, and there could be multiple. That's one reason why we want to test your nutritional imbalances, so we can see if that can be an issue. But if you've got low zinc, if you've got high insulin or insulin resistance, if you've got low magnesium, low chromium, low vitamin A, low vitamin E, low choline, choline is going to be essential for the brain function of your baby. Please eat some seafood, some shrimp, some lobster tail. Those are great. Low glutathione can contribute to infertility, and low glutathione will also deplete your body's ability to detoxify, especially phase 1 detoxification. So make sure you have adequate levels of that amazing antioxidant. Low vitamin D, low CoQ10. low chromium, which does help you also make insulin, low vitamin C, low pantothenate. All these things can decrease progesterone production. It can lead to polycystic ovarian syndrome, especially if you have high insulin. High caffeine intake, smoking. Smoking is, it's not a big deal. No, I'm joking. If you're trying to get pregnant and you are living a toxic life, don't think about getting pregnant until you clean up your body. You do not you do not want to do that to a child. Do not bring a child into this world unless you're trying to keep your body as healthy as possible, because it's just not fair. We got a toxic environment that you're bringing them into, so we want to make sure the father and the mother are as healthy as they can possibly be. So these are a few things. I'm going to have part two. Part two, we're going to be talking about how the thyroid connects and the adrenals. I'm also going to be going over more foods, a few more tests, and then we're going to talk about some interesting things with, putting the missing pieces together, identifying hormonal imbalances, infections, resolving gut dysbiosis. We're going to also talk about acupuncture and how that plays a role in fertility, as well as taking some time out for rejuvenation, because lifestyle is so key. So thank you so much for listening, and send me your emails, send me your comments. Please share this with people who are trying to conceive and get them engaged. The next phase is going to be more on solutions, so tune into that one. It should be released within about a week. Once again, my email is regan@gowellness.com, and I really appreciate the people who have taken the time to rate the podcast. It's very important because not only does it help others find us, but it helps me refine the process here. So love you all, thank you, and I can't wait to get pictures of your little babies. So until next time.